and it is the day when Lord Krishna was born. And I'm so happy that we have your presence here, Rishi, and may Lord Krishna's blessings be upon you for all the things that are going to happen in your life. Many of us here relate to you very much. My family were Ugandan refugees. We came here without anything, and our new High Commissioner from Uganda to the UK, Nimisha Madhwani,
Congratulations.
was also the same. Today the program is very simple. Wherever you're seated, please be seated. Later on, I know you all would love to take a picture or shake hands with Rishi, and he will be coming down to see all of you at the end. We're going to have some questions and answer session, and that is going to be the opportunity for you to ask anything. So be prepared for any questions that you would want to ask. So all of you may have got to know our Member of Parliament, Gagan Mahindra. Give him a good round of applause. Gagan has been instrumental in helping us get Rishi here today. And so I've also had help from our councillors, Veena Ranger. Please get up so that everybody gets to know you. We also have Abbas Mirali. Maybe he's running late. So there you are. But we've had help from everybody, and I'm really, really thankful to all of you, and particularly also Ian Ray and Chris Railing for helping me. And Ian is going to do the vote of thanks later. Abbas is going to speak a little bit about the party matter on patrons and so on, so that you can hear him afterwards. I don't want to take too much of anybody's time, so I'm going to invite Gagan to spend a few minutes introducing a guest who everybody knows, but still again, and then we will really open up the floor for our guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhash. Can I thank Subhash and his family for hosting us this morning?
Yes.
The Thakrar family actually proactively asked to host these leadership contests. We are waiting for a date from the Trust campaign to see if she has time to come to us. In terms of the process, it's really, really important you engage. As a Member of Parliament, I've done the hard lifting. I've got it down to 2 candidates I will happily work with. I am undeclared. Both are really, really good in my eyes.
With us. So, over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's fantastic to see you all this morning. Thank you for making time. Now, I have this great privilege at the moment, going out across the country, talking to our members about the future, and lots of people come and share ideas with me, and they all, as you would imagine, are interested in my relationship with our Prime Minister. Now, I had one person who came up to me the other day and she said, I've been thinking about you and Boris. And I said, okay, let's see where this is going to go. She said, you guys are very different. And I thought, well, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? But there we go. And she said, I've got it. She said, he looks like he's lost his hairbrush, but you look like your mum's brushed your hair. So, which is kind of an apt description, I thought, and one of the more nicer ones. But look, thank you for making some time for me. I am standing here on these steps in front of you today for a very simple reason. And that's because our country did something extraordinary for my family, as it did for many of yours. It welcomed us here as immigrants years ago and allowed us to build a better life. And that is an extraordinary thing that we should be enormously proud of. Now, I was raised with a few simple values. Firstly, that family means everything to me, because we know that the bonds of family are far greater than anything any government could ever hope to replicate. Now, in my family, the thing that we prioritised was hard work as the way to forge ahead. My dad was an NHS GP. My mum ran the local chemist in Southampton, where I grew up, and I spent all my time working in her shop, out and about delivering medicines to patients and doing her books, seeing the power of that small business to provide jobs in our local community. Now, for my parents, there was one thing they believed above all that could provide a better future for their 3 children, and it was simple. It was through education. And that's why today I passionately believe that the best way that we reduce inequality in society. The best way that we spread opportunity, indeed, the best way that we transform people's lives, is by ensuring that the birthright of every child is a world-class education. And that, in a nutshell, are my values. Patriotism, family, service, hard work and aspiration. And I see all of you, as you're nodding, that those are your values too. And that's because they're Conservative values, and that's why I want to be our Prime Minister, to put those values into action to build a better Britain and ensure that just as I had from this country, I can provide those same opportunities to everyone. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we need to do three things. We need to restore trust, we need to rebuild the economy, and we need to reunite our country. Now, when it comes to restoring trust, for me, that starts with honesty. And as you can see in this leadership race, I've not chosen to say the things that people may want to hear, but I've said the things that I believe the country needs to hear. And even though that doesn't make my life easy, it is honest, and that is what leadership is all about. But we'll have to restore trust by also delivering on the things that matter to people. And that's why I've set out a plan to radically reform the NHS, so we can stop talking always about how much money we're putting in and more about the healthcare that we're going to get out. It's why I've also said that we need to take on this lefty woke culture that seems to want to cancel our history, our values and our women. And it's why I've also set out a plan to finally get to grips with illegal migration. Because I stand here as a product of our country's compassionate, proud history in welcoming people. But like many of you and my family, that has to be done fairly, it has to be done legally. And when we turn on our TV screens and see scenes of people coming here illegally and flouting the rules, that undermines trust in our migration system, and that is not a good thing. And with my plan, we will finally get to grips with it, take proper back control of our borders and restore trust back in our migration system. Now, when it comes to rebuilding the economy, I don't need to tell you, you know what the challenge is. It's inflation. Inflation is the enemy. It makes people poorer, eats into people's pensions, their savings, pushes up mortgage rates. Now, this autumn and winter, I will make sure that we support people with the cost of living, cutting VAT off energy bills for everybody and going further to help the most vulnerable in our society. But what I will not do is pursue policies that risk making inflation worse and lasting far longer, especially if those policies seem to amount to simply borrowing £50 billion and putting that on the country's credit card and then asking our kids and our grandkids to pick up the tab, because that is not right. It's not responsible, and it is certainly, my friends, not Conservative. Now, I will cut taxes, and that's why in this Parliament, for the first time in 16 years, I will cut the rate of income tax and go on cutting it, because under my leadership, a Conservative government will always make sure that hard work pays. But I'm going to do that by being tough on public spending and by growing our economy. That's why this autumn I'm going to radically cut taxes for those businesses that are actually investing in expanding, those businesses that are innovating to create the products and services of the future, because that's how you drive growth in a modern economy. Taking advantage of our Brexit freedoms, I want to reform our regulations in financial services. We have to make British political history by winning a 5th general election in a... As Duggan said, the stakes could not be higher. But in order to win that election, to do the thing that hasn't been done before, which I know we can do if we work together, we have to appeal to swing voters everywhere. In the north and in the south, in urban seats and rural seats, in Brexit seats and Remain seats, in Liberal areas and Labour areas, in Scotland and in Wales. And I passionately believe, and the evidence says, that I am the candidate that offers our party the best opportunity of defeating Labour and ensuring that Keir Starmer never walks through the door of number 10. So in conclusion, conclusion, I'll just say this. You saw me as Chancellor in the pandemic, acting boldly, radically.
Good blessing.
And as Prime Minister, I promise you, I will apply that same urgency and grip to everything else that government does, as we build a better Britain. A Britain where our kids can walk safely on the streets at night. A Britain where our NHS is reformed and efficient and there for everyone. A Britain where our schools and apprenticeships are the envy of the world in providing opportunity. And our Britain where the economy is the most dynamic it has ever been. But I also promise you this, perhaps more importantly, that I will give my all, everything I've got, to ensuring that each and every one of you here today can always feel enormously proud of the Conservative government that I will be privileged to lead. So I humbly ask for your support, not just to be our next party leader, but also the next Prime Minister of our fantastic country. Thank you.
Right, we are going to go ahead.
Yeah, let's go. We've got some questions.
Yes.
Right,
So
right.
we're going to do questions, and I think those who are here, please make your way down if you can.
Good
so
opportunity.
You can have a good view. But before Lord Ranger, I'm going to ask, take a privilege of the host and ask him a question. And I wonder whether my wife Rekha has a question for him. But I might as well have two for you. But Rishi, I think you really have impressed a lot of people and a lot of us about your command over the economic matters. And as a chartered accountant myself, I'm completely with you, and particularly with the problems of borrowing and putting up lowering up the taxes is not going to solve the problem for the people who really need the help today. I'm convinced about that. The question that I have, as a Prime Minister, as a leader of a country, there has to be a vision. And I want you to tell us, in the next 10, 15 years, as a Premier of this country, what is your vision of what Britain is going to look like, not just here in the UK, but in the world? How are we presenting ourselves out there? I'd love to hear your really views on that subject. And we'll take Rekha's question as well at the same time, so you can deal with that together.
Mine is an easy one. It's just, I was wondering, how did you feel that you want to get into politics? I'm sure there's a lot of youngsters want to get into it, but you know, Kavita went to read politics and international studies at Warwick University, but then she...
Did you always have it on your dreams to be the next Prime Minister?
Gosh. Right. So
First time, sorry, I saw you on television and I said to Subhash, oh my God, I have seen somebody, he's 60. So I'm sorry, my voice is not...
So I'll repeat the questions, don't worry. So the first question was about a kind of vision for the country. The second question was about when and why did I want to get into politics. So in terms of what I want to do with the country, I think let's just put aside the short term. The short term imperative is grappling with inflation and helping people with the cost of living. We all know that. But looking longer ahead, the country that I want to build and the economy that I want to build is simple, right? I want to build an economy that is without doubt the most dynamic in the world. And for me, that comes with it being the most innovative and entrepreneurial. Because if you want to drive growth in this day and age, you have to have an economy where innovation is at the heart of everything that you do. And that means we need to have companies that are creating new things, we have government investing in R&D, we need to have a visa regime that attracts the best and the brightest, we need to have regulations that support innovation, and we have to have a culture where people are trying to do more, to do things differently, to grow their businesses, and are supported to do so. And I know how to build that economy. My experience in California of business and investing, I believe, means that I am uniquely placed to deliver the type of economy that will provide jobs and prosperity for our country over the coming decades. So that's what I want to do on the economy. I think on the other part of that is what I talked about, and it's education. Right? There is no such thing as a silver bullet in public policy. Right? Anyone who says, well, we fix this one thing, everything will be fine, is not being straight with you. But the closest thing that politicians and governments have to a silver bullet that can solve most of the problems is education. And what I want to make sure is that we have, as I said, an education system that is the envy of the world. And if we can do that, if we can make sure that our schools are performing at the highest level, our teachers are the most respected people in society, that we are using technology differently in our schools, that we make sure that our curriculum reflects the modern needs of people who are not able to give up maths at 16, if we can do all of that in our schools, if we can make sure that our apprenticeships are turbocharged, so that you have lots of routes into the careers you want, and if we stop thinking about education as something that has to finish at 18 or 21, but is something that is pervasive through your entire life as people train, retrain and upskill at every stage. If we can create that education system, then that is how we will really provide opportunity in the 21st century, and that's my vision for what I want to do. Now, Rekha, very simply, that I got into politics because of my parents. I saw how the impact they had in our community. When I was out delivering medicines, people would always say, okay, you're Dr. Sunak's son or you're Mr. Sunak's son, and they would tell me some story about my parents. And I thought that was amazing, that you can have such an impact on your local community doing what they did, and I want to do the same thing as a Member of Parliament, and hopefully I have that same impact in North Yorkshire. But when it came to doing these jobs, it was actually my father-in-law, who many of you will be familiar with, and I was always struck that a man who was so successful had created one of the world's most successful companies that employs hundreds of thousands of people, that literally has changed how an entire country is perceived, right? Always felt that you could have more impact through politics rather than through business. Because I thought maybe actually you can do this through business, you can do it through philanthropy, and you can have an impact the way he and my mother-in-law have had. But he was the one who said, no, if you want to have impact on the greater scale, the way to do it is through politics. And he was always right behind me, encouraging me to go. And that's why I'm here today.
We're going to now invite questions from, so raise your hands and I will try and pick as many of you as possible. If I've not picked up anybody, then I will pick more.
The lady in the sunglasses and the green. Yes, you.
Yeah, very quick question. HS2, scrap it or keep it? 2-word answer. That's all.
Well, we can't scrap it now. So what it'd be lovely for me to say that to all of you. I know how disruptive it is. What I can tell you though is what I would do very strongly is hold the HS2 Limited company to much greater account, because they've made a bunch of commitments that will impact on how the thing is delivered, not just here, but at communities across the country. And I want to make sure that they are held to all those promises, and then we minimise the disruption. So I know you don't want it, and I get that, but at least we can make sure that it's done in a way that is as minimally disruptive as possible.
Very good. Lord Dollar is here with us, so please
Hi.
Make your way. Dollar, if you're comfortable there, that's okay. Yeah. We've got questions, so I think Lord Ranger had a question, and then we will have High Commissioner, and then please keep raising your hands. If I miss you, then I will make sure then there's that gentleman after that. But Lord Ranger first.
My question is very simple. What will be your industrial strategy for Britain? You know, we were one of the leading manufacturing country, and now our base is shrinking, and we are too much dependent on China and all these countries. Yep. What will you do to revive industrial base?
So the question was about manufacturing and the industrial base. So look, this autumn I said I wanted to change how we tax businesses in this country. So one thing that I want to do is cut taxes for those businesses that are investing in things. And if you look at our tax treatment for capital investment for manufacturing, it is incredibly ungenerous. And when you look at our productivity difference with France, Germany, Italy, it's because of that. It's because our businesses over years have not invested, and I want to change that. So this autumn I want to cut taxes for businesses like manufacturing businesses that are investing in plant, machinery, equipment, robotics, automation, and for businesses that are investing in R&D, which is typically our best manufacturing businesses. If we do that, we will raise growth and productivity in this country. If we stick, that's my plan. If we stick with Liz's plan, which is to focus only on the corporation tax rate, we will not change the status quo. And the status quo has meant that our manufacturing base has declined. The status quo has meant that there has not been any more investment or innovation in our economy today compared to 10 years ago. And that's why I want to do something different. I think my plan is the right plan to support manufacturing.
Hi, Commissioner. Hi, Commissioner. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want, you've said a lot about here, but I'd like to know, we'd like to welcome you to Uganda. What are you doing in terms of foreign policy to enhance the trade? Actually, it follows up with what Lord Ranger said. I don't hear you talking much about your foreign policy, how you're going to attract more investments, how we can get the Uganda community, this is 50 years, to bring them to Uganda to do more business, expand their businesses, do their tourism. What sort of incentives would you need in Africa to enhance even Lord Poppett's work that he does as a trade envoy? And we could have a little bit more stimulation both ways. And I think now that Britain has left the EU, there's a huge scope and maybe some sort of trade treaties, export guarantees, and so on and so forth. But when you speak, of course, you have to talk about the British economy, but foreign policy would be very helpful for Africa.
Let's take two questions at a time as well, to try and make some progress.
We had that gentleman at the back.
Thank you, yes. I'm the leader of the Conservative group on Three Rivers District Council. I'm believed to be the youngest council group leader in the country. However, I'm deeply concerned, so I look at our council, we look to the north, St Albans was lost to the Liberal Democrats at the general election. To the south of our council, we've got Chesham and Amersham, that we lost at by-elections to Liberal Democrats, and to the east we've got Watford, where they've only ever had a Lib Dem mayor. Our council itself has been Lib Dem since the 1980s. Ultimately, they're the big threat here in the home counties. Yeah. What are you going to do to ensure that Lib Dem voters who used to vote for us come back?
This question was about trade policy, and look, that was one of the reasons I supported Brexit, was it allows us to take control of our trade policy, and we're starting to make good on that. So I think there's a new effort on expanding our trading links with countries across the world, not just in Africa. We can do a better job with our export finance, something that Dollar knows a lot about, which now as Chancellor I increased the funding to support businesses here that are exporting abroad. And then also we can use our Brexit freedoms to create things called free ports, because you talked about zones and tax incentives. So that's what I did. Around the country we've created almost a dozen free trading zones which have very significant tax and customs and tariff incentives to attract jobs, business investment to them. They're in places like Humberside, Teesside, the Thames Gateway, Merseyside, and they are working. And they are a very tangible symbol of a post-Brexit policy that's about outward looking to the rest of the world, and that's what I'd say we should double down on that. Now, Kieran, your point, congratulations first of all. You're right. So look, there's one policy thing I'd say, and then one slightly different thing. The policy thing is planning, because I think without a doubt, when I talk to our councillors in all those types of seats, the issue often that comes up is planning. So what I've said very clearly, I want to end the system of having top-down Whitehall imposed targets on local communities so that you can be in charge of the development that happens in your area. I think that will help. But there's one more important thing, so that's all good and well. But look, if you think about those types of voters, those liberal-leaning professional voters in places like Buckinghamshire, like here, and elsewhere across the south, actually, like many swing voters elsewhere, what they want is a government that works properly. And policies are important, but they're not actually the most important thing. It's the conduct of government. And what I will do is run a government where things are conducted seriously, where they're conducted competently, and with decency and integrity at the heart of everything that government does. That is the change that I'm going to bring. That is the type of Prime Minister I'm going to be, and that is how we're going to win in all of those places. Some more questions? Right. We've got. I think how about the gentleman all the way at the back, and then there's a lady even further back.
Yeah. So India is becoming a spiritual and a business superpower. And we've seen a lot of delegations from the UK go into India and vice versa. But it's all over the media, but nothing tangible has happened over the last 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, with you, being, you've declared you're a Hindu, and I think this is a huge influential community globally. Where is UK, India on your radar?
It's tackling inflation. What does that mean for the ordinary person's savings and pensions? The very ordinary person's savings pensions.
Brilliant.
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, let's do those two. So, look, on UK-India, obviously there's an enormous opportunity. If you've got 5 minutes, all I'd say, so I gave it, one of my last speeches that I gave as Chancellor was at the India UK Week Awards, and I did the thing where we were it was a lovely evening, right? So some of you were there with Gungan and I and Dollar, right? So go and have a read of that speech, and that tells you about my vision of how that relationship should work. Obviously, it's an enormous opportunity. Hopefully, I can play a role in strengthening it. And in the meantime, I'd say happy Janmashtami and happy Raksha Bandhan to everybody. Inflation. Look, inflation is the enemy, right? Margaret Thatcher knew this, and we cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. Because what does inflation do? It just makes you poorer, right? Wages cannot keep pace with inflation at 13%. Right? It's as simple as that. It makes you poorer. If you've worked really hard and built up some savings in your bank account, if you've built up a pension, as you said, and that's sitting there and you're reliant on your savings to fund your life, right? Those savings are getting eaten up. They are literally being eaten up every day that inflation is running at the levels it is. That's why we must get a grip of it and get it back down. How do we do that? We need to respect the Bank of England's independence. I'm incredibly worried about what I hear from Liz's camp, that they now think the Bank of England maybe should not be independent. That would be a major mistake. It's not something I will do as Prime Minister. Second is, you cannot put fuel on the fire. And that's why I'm very worried about her proposals to borrow so much money. Because look, maybe it'll be fine, and you never know. But borrowing £50 billion and pumping that into pumping that money into an economy where inflation and interest rates are already rising is an enormous gamble. It is a gamble that I'm not prepared to take, because if inflation gets embedded and rates have to rise even higher, all of those people you mentioned will face much more misery, and I don't think that's the right policy. And then the last thing is, what do we need to do? We need to increase the supply of things. If you want to get the price down, you need to increase supply. So we need to produce more food at home, more energy at home. We need those manufacturing companies expanding their production with the tax cuts that I deliver, and we need to get people off welfare and into work by being tougher on the welfare system to move people into work and ease some of the pressures in the labour market. That's how we're going to get inflation down. But the first thing is not to make it worse, and with my plan we won't. We'll get it down, and we'll make sure all the people that you're worried about and I'm worried about can look forward to a brighter future.
Yeah. Right, we've got a question here, and we're going to...
Right. We're going to have two more, because I want to try and have time to run around and see some of you as well.
Yeah,
quickly.
that we're going to do after that. Rishi, one question from...
Right, there was a lady in the front row.
Let
me try and whiz round and come and say hi.
I'm a retired law-abiding nurse. You want me to go to prison if I don't pay for the BBC? That is wrong.
So on the BBC, I mean, there's a consultation about changing how we do the licence fee, as you know. So that I would carry on with that plan, because, as you say, it's wrong that it should be criminalised like that.
Change it.
So we are changing it, ma'am. So that is what the government is doing, and I would carry on with those plans. Okay. So you don't have to worry about that. Vivek, thank you for your question. I mean, I have done something like 100 events in the past 2 weeks. So I am definitely giving it everything I've got, and I was on we were on Zoom yesterday. We did another bunch of those. So look, but thank you. Until the last moment of this thing, or until my voice gives up, I will keep going. I promise you that.
And Rishi, I want to invite one question from a youngster, Ashni. Ashni, how old are you? 12. Right. So go ahead, and then that's the last question, and then what?
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
That is very tough. If I could, it would probably be to have the Force. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. Are there any Star Wars fans here? Yeah, there we go. So I'm a massive Star Wars fan, always have been, and that was the thing that I would like the most. So if I could have the Force, then it'd be a Jedi. Does that count? I mean, is that okay? Right, fine. That is the thing I would like most. So does that sound all right? There we go. Right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, no more questions. Sorry, we don't have enough.